session. Parties and counsel are present. All members of our jury and our alternates are present. And our witness, Mr. McStay, is back in the witness stand. And Mr. Moline, you may possibly.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Just a couple things. I know that it's been a long time. It's been since you had gone to the Fallbrook police station in 2010. It's been roughly 9 years. So that's a long time. So it's hard to remember, and you indicated that on direct examination. So I want to ask you, before you testified today, have you met with the DA or any members of the DA team regarding your testimony?
Yes, sir.
How many times have you met with the three DAs that we see seated here? And they don't have to be together. You could have met with Mr. Imes alone, or Mr. Rodriguez alone, or any member. It doesn't have to be together. Just how many times have you met with them?
The day of arraignment, the Friday, the November 15th or 14th, we met in an office once. And then on, I believe, Wednesday, the 19th, last month, we met once. That's about it.
Were you provided any materials to review?
Yes, sir.
And who provided you the materials?
They did.
Who's they?
Mr. Britt, Melissa, and Sean.
So Britt, Melissa, and Sean gave you materials. What did they give you?
I think they were police reports.
Some of the same police reports that he's having you refresh your recollection with?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you know how many reports he gave you?
I don't remember. There was a lot of pages, maybe 20 pages or so.
Okay. And did he give you any transcripts of interviews that you had done?
No, sir.
I'm sorry?
No, sir.
Okay. So just the police reports?
Just police reports, yes, sir.
From San Bernardino sheriffs?
From both, from San Diego and then the continuation through San Bernardino.
Would it be fair to say that he gave you kind of all the reports that had anything to do with you?
My statements, etc. Yes, sir.
Okay. And they gave you instructions to review those?
Yes, sir.
And that you said that was on the 19th?
I'd have to check the exact date. It was either the 18th or it was Wednesday.
You're talking about December?
That's last month, yes, sir.
Okay.
It's been a long time.
Okay.
So.
And you haven't met with them since that?
No, sir.
Do you see that? But you do walk over with them sometimes in the morning? And you came to court with them one time?
They let me park in their building over there.
And then you guys walk over together?
No, I walk over with the victim's advocate, Alma.
Okay. And then when you leave court at the end of the day, because you've been watching as well, correct? You've been watching the trial.
Watching the trial?
Yeah, you've been seated in the court.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so when the court day's over, you walk back to the DA's office, is that correct?
No, sir.
You don't walk back to the DA's office?
When the day is done, I get my wife and I leave and go back to Orange County.
Okay, so you haven't walked back to the DA's office at all?
Just to get my truck or the car.
Okay. So you do walk back there, but you haven't met with them when you went back there?
No, sir, I've not met with them.
Okay, fair enough. Would you agree that there's a difference between the reports from San Bernardino and the reports from San Diego in terms of time? You know, San Diego was first, right? So the statements you gave to initially to let's say, Dugal on February 15, 2010, are before the statements you gave to Detective Bachman in San Bernardino, correct?
Yes, sir, different sheriff's department, different agencies, sir.
And so the statements that you gave on February 15th to Detective DeGaulle, I think you indicated that was at the Fallbrook house, and you were seated in one of the detective vehicles, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that would have been the exact same day that you reported your family missing, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So would you agree that events were fresher in your mind at that point as to your contact with your brother and his family, as opposed to 4 years later when you were talking to Detective Bachman?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the very first thing you did when you reported your family missing is you actually drove to the Fallbrook station, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you met with a deputy Tingley.
Mike Tingley. Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Okay. And do you recall telling him when you had been to the house, the Fallbrook house, to check on your brother?
Yes, sir.
And what did you tell him?
I had said that I had went by the week before, I believe, and drive by.
Okay. You told him that you went on the 4th, February 4th, or February 6th, correct?
I don't believe that, I don't remember the dates, but I know it was the week before.
I'm show you the report. I don't have a dates number on this, but I think you know what the report. You got it? You don't mind just taking a look at, you can look at whatever you want, but I'm going to have you look at paragraph 2, okay?
So, this one?
Yes.
Do you want me to read this one?
You can read whatever you want.
Okay.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yep.
As to the date?
Yes, sir.
And what date did you tell Deputy Tingley that you had driven by your brother's house?
The 4th or the 6th.
And did that refresh your memory as to when you did in fact drive past your brother's house?
Yes, sir.
So you did drive past your brother's house on either the 4th or the 6th, correct?
I believe so.
And what prompted you to do that?
I think the family had been talking about, or someone had been talking about not being able to get a hold of them.
Okay, because you testified on direct examination that the first you ever learned of anything was February 9th when you heard from, I think it was your father who had heard from Dan Cavanaugh through an email or something, correct?
Correct. Correct.
That was February 9th. So,
I
on
believe so,
February,
yes, sir.
so the question that I have is what prompted you to drive past your brother's house on February 4th or February 6th?
I believe, actually I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
And when you drove past their house on the 4th or the 6th, was it at night or was it during the day?
I think it was in the daytime. And it might have been in my work truck.
Okay. Because on direct examination, you indicated that you had never been to the house prior to meeting my client there on February 13th. You recall that testimony?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how did you know where to drive past on February 4th or 6th if you had never been there?
I'm not sure how I knew the address. Maybe my brother had told it to me or something. I'm really not sure.
Okay. So when you said that you went, when you drove past the house on the 4th or the 6th, now you're saying that, but on direct, when you said you hadn't been there since, the first time you had been there was February 13th, was that something that you just forgot on direct examination, or?
I'm not really sure if what I meant that I'd been there or been inside. I don't even recall going there, honestly.
Okay. But yet you remember that my client is standing 20 feet away from you in the backyard
Yes,
before
sir.
you went through the window. That specific detail you remember very clearly, right?
I have a reference for that. I do blueprints, so I kind of know how far certain rooms are. Garages are 20 by 20, driveways are certain distances. I do fire sprinklers, so I kind of can guesstimate distances pretty accurately, just from doing the trade for over 15 years.
Okay, and your testimony was that he stayed 20 feet away and he looked at you go through the window and he didn't help you. You went through and you climbed through your belly, right, on your belly.
Yes, sir.
And he didn't help you and you couldn't understand why, and he stayed out of the house, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, and Mr. Imes actually brought the report of San Bernardino Sheriff's over to you to refresh your recollection on that, correct? You remember him doing that?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. So he didn't bring you the first statement you gave to Detective Dugal on the 15th, when you guys were seated in his patrol, in his unmarked detective vehicle in front of the Fallbrook House on February 15th. But you do remember being interviewed at that time, correct?
I remember being interviewed, yes, sir.
Okay. And do you recall telling Detective Dugal that that on the 15th that you actually went into the house with your whole family was there on the 15th? I'm sorry, the 13th. That you had gone in on the 13th. You told Detective Dugal that, correct?
Yes, I went in on the 13th, and I told Mr. Dugal that.
And you told him that your whole family went in with you, correct?
I don't remember if they went in or not, but I'm not sure.
And then you also told him that Chase was with you on the 13th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that you let him in as well. Remember telling Detective Dugal that?
Do you have a copy of
I'm
the
going to
writing?
refresh your memory.
Yes, sir.
Okay. 265. Now remember, this is the statement which is the same day that you reported your family missing back in 2010, correct?
15th, okay.
And you indicated that this obviously would be much fresher in your memory than something you said 4 years later, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So on the 15th, when you're being interviewed by Detective Dugal, you tell Detective Dugal that, so you went in, did Chase go into the house? Yeah, I let him in. You remember telling Detective Dugal that now?
Oh, I believe so. I mean, I believe the report.
Okay. And you wouldn't lie to Detective Dugal, would you?
No, sir.
So you were trying to do the best you could, right?
Yes, sir.
And that would have been the truth. You were telling him the truth, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you did let Chase in, right?
I remember opening the slider. If he went in or not, I don't recall. I don't believe he did, but that report says, so I'm not really sure.
I'm going to have you look at page 67. If you could see if this reflects your recollection as well. You can look at, I guess, the start of there to there. Sure.
Okay.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there was actually some phone numbers that you were looking for, and I think you mentioned that on direct, right?
Yes, sir.
You were looking for some emergency numbers, right?
Yes, contact for the family. Summer's mom or something.
Okay. And you indicated to Detective Dugal at the time that you were looking for, you opened the cupboard because you knew there was some blue, Chase thought there was a phone number, emergency call list, or a blue number on that page. I took the number that said 951 blah, 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 4342 or something like that. That was my mom's phone.
I'm going to object. Is counsel testifying or asking a question?
You recall telling Detective Dugal that?
No, but I believe the report.
Okay. You would have said that, right? You wouldn't be lying to Detective DeGaulle,
No,
right?
sir. If it's in the report, I believe it's accurate.
And you actually told Detective DeGaulle that you called that number, right?
Yes, I did call the number.
And who's the one that left the message on the
It turned out to
machine?
be my own mother's phone number, not Summer's mom.
But who left the message for your mother?
I did.
Let's take a look at line 1507.
Turned out to be my own mom.
Right. Keep reading.
Read out loud?
To yourself.
Oh,
As to who left the message on the phone.
okay.
Does that refresh your memory as to who left the message?
Oh, you want me right there, I'm sorry. You said, okay, 1507. Chase left a message.
So when you made that phone call to your turned out to be your mother, you thought it was your grandmother, right?
I thought it said Gigi was the name, so I thought she was referring to her grandmother, or her mother, excuse me. So I dialed the number, didn't recognize the number, dialed it, turned out to be my own mother.
But that's what you told Detective DeGaulle, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the person that actually left the voicemail message was Chase, right?
Yes, sir, that's what the report says.
And the phone, I take it, was in the house when you made the call, correct?
It's on my cell phone, I thought, and I don't really recall where I was standing at the time.
Okay. But regardless of where you were standing, you said Chase left the message, right?
Yes, sir.
And you were looking for that number, and you found it in the cupboard, right?
In the cupboard, yes, sir.
And the cupboard is in the house, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What phone was the message from Mr. Merritt on?
I'll be honest, it's so long ago. I believe what I did was I opened the cupboard, there was a number, I got the number, I called it from my
The
own.
number was what, on a notebook or a?
Yes, sir, I got a scratch pad, a paper,
Okay.
or whatever, taped, masking tape to the inside of the, and actually, whether it was in the cupboard, the pantry, honestly, I don't remember
Okay,
which.
yeah, you're right, you called the number.
I called the number, it turned out to be I left, I thought I was calling her, Summers, Blanche, and it turned out to be my own mother.
Okay. And then how did you discover a message from Mr. Merritt?
No, that wasn't the question, Your Honor. The person that left the message when the voicemail came on, Chase left the message when they called that number. Somebody left a message because when you call that number, you got voicemail, correct?
Correct.
Nobody answered it physically.
Nobody answered the phone.
So somebody had to leave a voice message, correct?
Correct.
And the person you told Detective DeGaulle that left that message was Chase, at least according to your statement.
Yes, sir.
So that was on your mother's phone?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that refreshes your recollection as to whether Chase was in the house, right? You let him in, you guys made the phone call, he left a message on the voicemail. Does it refresh your recollection at this point?
No, sir. I don't remember where the phone call was made from. I don't know if I was standing in the driveway or if I was standing in the backyard. I'm not sure.
Okay. When I showed you the statement that you told Detective DeGaulle on February 15th, 2010, when you let Chase in, you had also let your whole family in, correct? On the 13th?
Yes, sir.
And so when you say your whole family, what are we talking about? You had your wife, Erin, at the time, correct?
My wife at the time, yes.
And she was there,
Yes.
and you let her in, right?
Yes, and I have 3 daughters.
And did you let all 3 of them in as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the front door.
Okay. And did you let Chase in at the same time you let your family in?
I don't believe Chase was at the front door at that time.
So
He
you
came
could let...
to the window and went to the front door.
Okay. So when you told Detective DeGaulle that you let him in, you're talking about the sliding door?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So then both of you proceeded through the house. Where did you and Chase go to first, or did you guys split up?
I remember opening the slider, but I don't remember him coming inside.
So when you don't remember that now, but when I refreshed your recollection, you told Detective DeGal that you let him in, correct? That's what your statement to Detective
Correct, I
DeGal.
opened the door.
And you let him in. That's what you told Detective DeGal, correct? Would you like to see it again?
I'm not sure the phrasing of it, if it means I opened the door or I let him in. I'm really not, I don't know if he actually came through into the house.
Did Chase go into the house? Yeah, I let him in.
Okay. That would have been in the back by the slider, I'm assuming.
Okay. So do you remember where Chase went inside the house, or did he go with you?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you ever go to the kitchen portion of the house on the 13th?
Yes, sir.
Did you see a coffee pot there?
I did, yes, sir.
Did you notice that it had coffee inside it?
I believe so, yes.
Did you see any cups on the counter?
I'm not sure.
Did you see, was there anything about that coffee that, in the pot anyway, that got your attention? Was there mold, or was it overflowing, or was there anything that caught your eye regarding the coffee?
Not really. I was really looking for phone numbers, so maybe I didn't see it or pay attention.
Is that cupboard that you found the phone number in, is that cupboard near the kitchen?
I believe it was either the pantry above the coffee pot on the back wall. I think that's where it was at, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So, did you notice any food on the counters in the kitchen, or fruit?
I remember seeing the eggs. I remember seeing the bowls of, like little kid bowls of popcorn. I don't remember really seeing the fruit. It may have been, on the counter, but I don't think I caught it.
Okay. Do you recall any type of smell in the house?
No.
Like something smelled super bad, like diapers or anything like that?
No.
Did you see diapers in the trash cans?
I think there might have been in the downstairs bathroom, but I'm really not sure.
Nothing overwhelming in terms of smell or overflowing with diapers or anything like that?
I don't recall.
When you were looking around, and I guess you don't remember if you went upstairs, is that correct?
Yeah, I don't remember if I went upstairs
Okay.
at that time.
Did you keep your family near you, meaning did you keep Aaron near you, or did Aaron and the girls go wherever they wanted to go?
God, it's hard. I don't recall.
There was testimony that there was in the house at the time some toys lying around, children's toys and so forth.
Yes, I do believe my kids went upstairs, actually. Because the play things were upstairs.
And they were playing around on the toys?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Do you know if they may have knocked down some things when they were playing?
I'm not sure.
Certainly possible though, correct?
Calls for speculation.
Sustained.
The toys that were upstairs, do you remember those toys to be like in the loft area or in one of the rooms?
Yes, sir. Yes.
How long were you in the house, best you can recall? Meaning, I'm not asking for an exact time. Actually, what I'm asking is, were you in there for a couple minutes, or were you in there closer to an hour, 45 minutes to an hour?
I don't really recall. Maybe 15, 20 minutes. I'm really not sure.
Did you make any written notes as to what your observations were on the 13th?
No, sir.
Was there anything that you saw on the 13th that caused you some type of alarm that you felt you needed to call the police right away?
No, sir.
Did Chase leave with you? Meaning at the same time, did you guys all leave together?
I don't recall.
When you first got there, at least on direct examination, you said that you had never been there before, which is different than when you told Deputy Tingley. But do you recall telling any law enforcement officer that when you went to the house on the 13th, you actually needed to meet Chase at a gas station before you actually went to the house because you didn't know where it was?
I don't recall.
So after you left on the 13th, well, let me back up. On the 13th, when you're there with Chase, do you recall Chase telling you that he wanted you to report this to the authorities and that you felt you needed to wait another day or two and you were going to speak to your mother first? Do you recall that?
I do not.
Now, I'm going to go back a few days to February 9th, okay?
Okay.
Because that's the day you said that you heard, I think I heard it correct. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But you heard from your father first, is that right? Because he had gotten an email from Dan Kavanaugh. Was that the first alert that you ever got, at least as far as your testimony is concerned, here on direct examination? Was that what you testified to?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
I apologize. On February 9th, was that the first time that you received some alert from some party that you needed to check on your brother's whereabouts?
I believe so. What you mean when I was on my phone with my father?
Yes.
I believe so.
Okay. So your father, did it happen this way that your father called you on February 9th and said, could you check on Joey? I just got an email from Dan Kavanaugh. Was it something like that?
I'm not sure who called whom. I just remember my father telling me he got an email from Dan Kavanaugh.
There was a conversation with your dad that you had regarding that email from Dan Kavanaugh, where your dad was telling you that he actually deleted that email because he didn't know who that was. Do you remember that?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
I don't know, sir.
And you don't remember if you called your dad or your dad called you, right?
I do not. We spoke often.
I'm going to, Mr. Imes had shown you your phone records.
Okay.
Do you mind if I showed you your phone records on the 9th? And you can just scan down the 9th and you can tell me. Yeah, I think that's the easiest. It's page 27 of 29. You can see here it ends on February 8th, right? Okay, yeah, that's the 8th. And then it starts with the first call on the 9th. Would you agree at 12:01 a.m.?
Oh, 12:01, gotcha.
Okay, so you can just start there on the 9th and go all the way down. My arms aren't long enough either, so I have to kind of go like that, but feel free to look at whatever.
What am I looking for?
The 9th, to see when and if you talked to your father and who called who.
Okay. Do we know what my dad's number is?
Your dad was living in Texas, right?
I know it's a 281, I think. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Did you go through all the 9th?
I don't know what.
Well, let's see, the 9th continues on. Oh, there's two more here.
I don't see the number.
Is it possible that you didn't talk to your dad on the 9th?
Yes.
Is it possible that you didn't talk to your dad at all?
Do you have the records for the 10th?
Sure.
Or that week?
Sure.
We have this nice calendar going here. We want to make sure that we make the correct adjustments if necessary.
I don't. Do you know this number? 281 is.
281
Yeah, that's
on the 10th?
at 3:48 in the afternoon on Wednesday the 10th. I don't know the number, but it may have been his.
At, oh, you're talking about...
Incoming phone call 281-475-5597.
Yes. Yes.
Is that my dad's number?
Well, let me see. Do you remember that to be your dad's number?
He had switched to T-Mobile from other. I might check my phone, but I don't know.
That sounds about right, though, right?
Yes, sir.
The way you remember it. So it would have been the 10th. Now, if you could just stay on the 10th, I apologize. If you could just go down from that incoming call. What time was that incoming call? You said 3:48?
So that was the 10th. Okay.
You said 3:48, right?
Yeah, that's it. Spring, Spring, Texas. My dad lives in Spring. Yeah.
So is that 3:48?
That's 28147. Yep, that's 357.
Actually, the first call was the incoming, right, that you mentioned? You go a little bit higher than that? To 3:48?
348. Yeah, incoming call at 348 from
It doesn't say Spring, Texas, but it's incoming, correct?
incoming.
So that means your dad would have been calling you if that's his number.
Okay.
And then the outgoing call that you just referred to, going to Spring, Texas, that is at
357.
3:57. Does that sound about right?
And then an incoming back at 405 and an incoming at 407.
So in the afternoon, late afternoon of that day?
Up to
Does that sound,
Wednesday.
does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to have my handy-dandy assistant here because he says my writing sucks. So I'm going to
Mine too.
have him write on the calendar.
At this point, Your Honor, I'm going to object that the people's exhibit. If they would like to create their own, they're free to.
First, we can't, these are the people's or these the jury's exhibit?
They can work on the exhibit.
What do you want me to write?
On the 10th, okay, not the 9th, the 10th, there's an incoming call at
Patrick tomorrow?
Patrick tonight, correct? And that would be the first incoming call is at 3:48 p.m. And you agreed with that, right? That was the first incoming call from your dad?
I believe so, yes.
And then we had an outgoing call at 3:57 p.m.
And Mike calls Patrick.
Correct. And then
What time?
that's at 3:57 p.m. And then there's two incoming calls, one at 4:05 and one at 4:07 p.m.
You know the incoming Patrick calls Mike?
Yes. And then we missed one here, Mr. McStay, if you don't mind just taking a look at 6:55 p.m. and tell me if that number matches your dad's number as well.
What time?
At 6:55. Yes, on that page. Would it be with your permission? Can we cross out where the DA wrote Mike spoke with Dad, Reed, Joe on the 9th? Would that be a fair thing to do? Because since you didn't speak with him, at least according to your records.
Oh. Is that allowed?
If you agree that you didn't speak with your dad, based on refreshing your recollection, then we will ask the judge if it's permissible to put an X through there as a symbol that you didn't speak with your dad on the 9th.
I don't think he needs to cross it out or put an X.
So if we're working off this timeline.
If you, with what regard to that you wrote on the date of 2/10, if you want to put in parentheses, not 2/9, you can do that.
Sounds good to me. Can I write that part? Oh, no, I can't. Okay.
A little more reading. I wrote in parentheses, not February 9th.
Okay?
So, based on your review of the records, and since that was at least your first contact with another person regarding your brother, would you agree that the cycle of events, for you anyway, started on the 10th and not the 9th?
I guess so.
Okay. Now, would that be the same for your conversations with Chase? Because you on direct, remember, you said you spoke to Chase on the 9th. You remember? And Mr. Imes was telling you about, and he said that you had this conversation about bowls and all that kind of stuff. Remember? Moving the dog bowls.
Objection, mistakes testimony.
16.
You recall on direct examination with Mr. Imes that you refreshed your recollection again with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's reports about contact with Chase on the 9th.
Objection, mistakes testimony.
16.
You recall testifying on direct that you had contact with Chase on the 9th.
I thought it was the 9th.
So, would it be fair to say that you did not have contact with Chase on the 9th?
Do we have phone records on that one?
Sure. You didn't speak to Chase before you spoke to your dad, though, right? Didn't you say that the contact with your dad was the first contact you had?
Correct.
So, since you said that was on the 10th, logically you wouldn't have had contact with Chase on the 9th, correct? But you're free to review whatever you like, that's
I
fine.
don't want to answer incorrectly. I don't think I have the 9th here. I don't think I have the 9th here.
Okay. You do make a lot of calls, that's for sure.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. There we go. Isn't it out of order? I don't see a phone call on the 9th.
So, would it be fair to say that you did not speak with Chase on the 9th?
That's correct.
Now, what do you remember? Because on direct examination, you were asked about your telephone call with Chase, and that you mentioned something to the effect, I believe, that he was either going to your mom's or he was leaving your mom's house or something of that nature. Is that correct?
Correct.
What was the conversation that you remember?
I called my mother, and she said that either, and this is where I can't remember exactly, whether Chase was just here and going down to the house or vice versa. Not sure which one it was. But I then asked her for his phone number.
So, you were here, you stood in, I mean, you actually sat in the courtroom when your mom testified, right?
I did, yes, sir.
So, you heard your mom testify that Chase went there on the 9th, correct? You heard your mom say that, right?
I believe so.
So then, Mr. Imes then asked you about the call, and you said it was the 9th also. You heard your mom say it was the 9th, and so you testified that it was the 9th. But you've reviewed your phone records, and it turns out that you didn't speak to Chase on the 9th. So when you talked to him on the 10th, is it your testimony that he said he was just leaving your mom's house? Or is that your testimony?
I don't, what exactly, can you rephrase that?
Yes, your conversation with Chase on the 10th now, we discovered it's the 10th. Is he telling you he just left your mom's house? Is that what you remember?
My mother said, when I called my mother, she said that he either just left her house and was going down there, or he was just returning from the house. So I don't recall which, if he was on his way down or up, but then I asked for his phone number so I could call him.
Okay. So did you call him right away after that?
I would assume so. I'm not sure.
Is it possible that you waited till the next day?
I don't believe so. I believe I called him. I'm pretty quick to call right away.
And you understood from speaking to your mom that Chase had just been there, correct?
There meaning her house in Trilogy.
Meaning, like he was just there moments ago, like not on a previous day, correct?
Correct. That day. Yes.
So was it your mom that's mistaken that it was the 9th?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because in my recollection, I've always thought it was the 9th, but I could be mistaken.
So there would be a call from either you to your mom on the 9th or from your mom to you on the 9th, correct? In your phone records?
Yes, sir.
Did you happen to take a look and see if you saw your mom's number?
I did not.
Counsel for comment. Open report.
Would you agree?
Just a second, Board, the person in charge here, the court reporter, we can't do anything until they're ready. All right, now, you may resume, Mr.
Thank you. Would you agree, Mr. McStay, that the records are kind of better, especially when you're dealing with such a gap in time. The records kind of speak for themselves as to when things may have occurred, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, when you left on the 13th, you said you were there maybe 15 or 20 minutes, correct? There was no foul smell, there was nothing that really jolted you where you felt you needed to call law enforcement at that time. Do I have that correct?
The 15 minutes were referring inside the house, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, did you spend some time outside the house?
Yes, sir. I went door to door canvassing, and I was there.
On the 13th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and was Chase with you when you were canvassing, or was he going to other homes as well? Or do you remember?
I don't recall.
Okay. But you guys left at the same time, correct? You physically drove away?
I'm not sure.
You remember a conversation about the dogs? What, if anything, should be done about the dogs at that point? And then you had contemplated possibly taking the dogs at that point. You recall that?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. So, and that was a conversation you were having as you were kind of loading up your family to actually leave, correct?
I'm not sure when I'm not sure.
Okay. But you did contemplate taking the dogs at that point, correct?
I believe so. And then I had the neighbor Heidi next door take care of them.
And then
She
you
said she would take care of them.
And then, and because you talked to the neighbor, you opted not to take the dogs at that point, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And at that point, when you looked at the condition of the dogs and so forth, did you see an actual food bag there for the dogs, or some type of food?
I did, yes, sir.
What did
Inside the shed.
What did you actually see? In regards, one bag, was it open?
It was an open bag, yes, sir.
Because somebody has to kind of pour the food into the, I guess, the bowl. Or, do I have it wrong?
Correct.
Okay. So,
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and it's been a long time, I believe Animal Control told me that they were the ones that left the bag because they had been to the house like 3 different times, or 2 or 3 times.
did
On
you
the
get a,
14th, that was the Sunday night.
okay. Did you get a sense of when the last time they had been there? Meaning, were they coming there every day? Were they there the 13th, the 12th, the 11th? Or the last time they were there was maybe the 5th?
They, being Animal Control?
Yes.
I'm not sure of the
Okay.
dates.
But when you got there on the 13th and you looked at the dog bowls, they had food, the dog bowls had food in it? Or had the dogs eaten it?
On the 13th?
Yes.
I don't recall if they were full or empty.
Did you notice anything about the bag? Did the bag look new, or did it look like it was almost gone?
I don't recall.
Okay. Because if you made arrangements with Heidi, was she the one that was going to go buy the food on an ongoing basis, or did you give her money for that, or how was that going to work out?
She had dogs, was a dog lover, and she was the neighbor, and she offered. And how she did it, I don't know.
Okay. Okay, so then you left on the 13th. There was no effort to call law enforcement on that day. What about the next day on the 14th? Did you try to contact your brother on the 14th?
I had tried calling his phone various times throughout this whole process, so I don't know if I did or did not.
Did you take any steps on the 14th to possibly learn the whereabouts of your brother? Meaning, did you speak to friends? He had a lot of friends, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You mentioned a couple in your testimony. I think you mentioned MacGyver, correct?
Yes, sir.
That was one of his friends? Did you make an effort to contact MacGyver?
I don't recall.
How about you mentioned another name. Yeah, Guy Joseph. Is that a name that you had mentioned?
Guy Joseph, yes.
Yes. That was another one of your brother's good friends.
Well, my brother's very good friends, yes.
Did you make an effort to contact him, for example? This is after the 13th.
I'm not sure.
Okay. But you did indicate that on the 13th, the house looked lived in, right? That was your testimony?
The condition of it,
Yes.
it looked like they were camping out in it while they were doing the remodel.
Okay. Did you see any paint on the walls, like fresh paint? I know you mentioned the blue tape,
Yeah, I saw a painter's tape. Right.
but you didn't mention any paint on the walls, or did you?
I don't recall. I don't know if it looked new or old or fresh, or I have no idea.
And you've already said that nothing stood out to you in regards to smell, so I take it you mean there was no fresh paint smell either, correct?
No, I don't believe there was, but yeah, I don't think there was.
Okay. Did you notice anything on the floor in the family room? Was there boards or anything on the floor?
In the front, like the formal dining room area.
Okay.
That's where the hardwood floor, the boxes of the hardwood floor was.
So you knew that they were remodeling, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Before you got there on the 13th, you already knew that they were remodeling because your brother had told you that?
He told me, yeah.
Okay. So that didn't surprise you, right? The fact that, okay.
No, that's normal.
When you left, and the 14th, you don't remember if you made any effort to contact any friends, correct?
I knew I was concerned, but I don't recall who I called.
Do you remember having conversations with your dad on the 14th about what should be done?
I don't recall.
Why did you mentioned something that the 15th was a drop dead date? What was special about the 15th that was going to be a drop dead date?
Well, for me, because everybody, I had spoken with different people, and I just felt like at that point, it's after Valentine's Day and how the weekends fell for those, that that was the sense of urgency. That's what I was going to do regardless.
And the 15th was what day of the week?
15th, I believe, is a Monday.
Okay, so you were going to wait till maybe they came home over
Correct.
the weekend?
And I come home, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Did it concern you at all that when you were calling your brother, at least the times that you called between the 10th and the 15th, that at some point the calls were going straight to voicemail? I think that's what you indicated, correct?
Yes, sir. For a while they were not, and then all of a sudden they were.
Like you could leave a message in the beginning when you were calling, correct?
Correct.
And then you couldn't all of a sudden?
Yeah, correct.
And you know that sound to be maybe the phone's either off or out of battery or whatever, correct?
Correct.
So did that add to your concern?
Yes.
Okay. And what about Summer? Were you trying to call her number as well?
I believe I called, yes, I believe Summer had 2 phones at that time, and I believe I called all the numbers that I had.
Now, had you had a close relationship with Summer up until that point? And we're talking about
Let me
February.
interrupt you at this point. It's after 4:15, almost 4:20. So we'll go ahead and take our evening recess at this time till 9:30 tomorrow morning. Again, keep in mind the admonitions, not to form or express any opinions about the case, not to discuss the case, not to allow anyone to discuss the case with you, and again, not to read anything about the case in the papers, not to view any of the media coverage about the case or any of the people involved in the case. And we'll see everyone back at 9:30 tomorrow morning.